Hello children! You know that plants prepare their food by photosynthesis. Using sunlight, CO2 and water. The roots absorb the water and minerals from the soil. Unlike animals, plants do not have a circulatory system to transport the materials. How water and nutrients absorbed by the roots are transported to the leaves? How does water reach the top of tall plants? I am Bindu. Let us explore answers to these questions on the topic of transportation in plants from the lesson Life Processes of class 10th Biology. Living organisms require energy and their needs are different. Plants do not move and have dead cells in many tissues. They have special vascular tissues, xylem and phloem. Refer to the lesson Plant Tissues of class 9th to recollect the structure of the xylem and phloem. In plants, the conducting tubes like xylem moves the water and minerals from the soil. The phloem transports the photosynthesis products from the leaves to other parts of the plant. Learning outcomes. After studying this chapter, you will be knowing about transportation of water into roots, root pressure, transpiration, translocation of ions and mineral salts, translocation of sugars. Keywords: osmosis, xylem, phloem, root air, transpiration, root pressure, cohesion, adhesion, let us see the transportation system of plants in this concept map. Diffusion is the movement of solids, liquids and gases from regions of higher to lower concentration. Osmosis is the movement of water or solvent molecules from a region of higher to lower concentration across a semi-permeable plasma membrane. Active transport is the transport of molecules against the concentration gradient using energy. In plants, the transport of materials in and out of the cells occurs by diffusion and active transport. Plants obtain nitrogen, phosphorus, and other minerals absorbed by the roots from the soil. The transport of energy and raw materials from roots to the leaves by diffusion in smaller plants. Diffusion will not be sufficient for transportation to larger distance in taller trees. The root contains millions of root hairs for the absorption of water and minerals. Root hairs are thin-walled epidermal cell extensions that increase the surface area of absorption. The soil water is an extremely dilute salt solution and its molecular concentration is lower than that of the cell sap in the root hair. Entry of the water increases the concentration of water molecules in the root hairs than in the cortex. Thus, water moves by osmosis from the root hair to the cortex and then into the xylem. And to the stem and leaves. The water absorbed by the root hairs moves deeper into root layers by two pathways. Apoplast pathway. The apoplastic movement of water occurs exclusively through the intercellular spaces and the walls of the cells, but not across the cell membrane. This depends on the concentration gradient. Simplast pathway. In this, water molecules move to the adjacent cells through the plasma membrane. Cytoplasm and plasmodesmata. This is a slow transport and depends on the concentration gradient. The entry of water dilutes the content of the root hair vacuole. So, water passes through other cells and finally enters the xylem vessels. The involvement of a large number of root hairs and root cells increases the pressure in the xylem vessels and forces the water to move upwards. This total pressure is known as root pressure. Root pressure can be absorbed in this experiment. Take a regularly watered potted plant and cut the stem part 1 centimeter above the ground level. Then connect a glass tube by means of strong rubber tubing. The size of the glass tube and the stem should be equal. Take care while joining the tube and stem being bound tightly to avoid escape of water from the tube. Now pour some water into the glass tube until the water level can be seen above the rubber tube. Mark the level of water M1 in the tube. Keep the pot aside for 2 to 3 hours. Then observe and mark the water level M2 in the tube. The difference between M2 and M1 levels indicates the increase in water levels in the stem due to the root pressure. Transpiration. It is the evaporation of water from the stomata in the leaves. Stomata are open during the day and closed at night. The opening and closing of the stomata depends on the trajectory of the guard cells. Entry of water into the guard cells makes them turgid and causes the opening of stomata. Loss of water from the guard cells makes them fleshy and the stomata are closed. Water evaporates from leaf mesophyll cells through the open stomata, lowering the water concentration. This allows the entry of more water by osmosis into the cells from the xylem of the leaf veins. The loss of water from the leaves increases pressure at the top, pulling more water from the xylem to the mesophyll cells. This process is called transpiration pull. This extends up to the roots, causing more water absorption from the soil for a continuous flow of water from the roots to the leaves. Transpiration is affected by external factors like temperature, light, humidity, and wind speed. Internal factors include the number and distribution of stomata, percentage of open stomata, water status of the plant and canopy structure, etc. Uptake of minerals. Plants meet nutritional requirements by absorbing minerals from the soil. The minerals are present in the soil as charged ions and cannot move across cell membranes. The concentration of minerals in the soil is usually lower than the concentration of minerals in the root. Therefore, most minerals enter the root by active absorption through the cytoplasm of epidermal cells. This needs energy in the form of ATP and then transported to all parts by transpiration pull. Translocation of mineral ions. Minerals are remobilized from older dying leaves to younger leaves and can be seen in deciduous plants. The phosphorus, sulfur, nitrogen, and potassium are easily mobilized while calcium is not remobilized. Small amounts of material exchange take place between the xylem and phloem. Phloem transport. Phloem transports sucrose from a source to a sink. The source is the leaf, where the food is synthesized, and the sink is the part that kneads or stores the food. Phloem is composed of sieve tubes that have sieve plates. Cytoplasmic strands pass through the pores in the sieve plates. The movement of substances in the phloem is bidirectional and can be upwards or downwards. The movement is always only upwards or unidirectional in the xylem. Translocation of sugars. The mechanism of translocation of sugars by phloem from source to sink is through the pressure flow hypothesis. Glucose prepared by photosynthesis is converted to sucrose. Sucrose moves into the companion cells, then into sieve tube cells by active transport. This produces a hypotonic condition in the phloem, and water from the xylem moves into the phloem by osmosis. The increased osmotic pressure causes the phloem sap to move to the areas of lower pressure. By active transport, sucrose moves into the cells where it is utilized or stored. The sieve tubes of phloem are extremely small, and biologists studied food transportation in plants with the help of aphids. The aphids cluster around the young stems and feed on the plant juices. They pierce the plant tissues with a long needle-like organ called proboscis. When an aphid feeding on a stem is killed and the stem carefully sectioned, the proboscis only penetrates up to a phloem sieve tube. It was found that because the contents of the phloem sieve tubes are under slight pressure and the fluid slowly exudes from the cut end of the proboscis as drops. The fluid contains sugars and amino acids. In another experiment, a ring of bark from a shoot is removed to expose the wood. All tissues are removed from the center to outwards, including the phloem. After a few days, the tissues above and below the ring were analyzed. It was shown that Food had accumulated above the ring but was not below. It was left for some more time, and the stem increased in thickness above the ring, but no growth occurred below. So, any damage to the phloem all around the stem will prevent the food from passing down to the roots, and the tree will eventually die. The upward movement of water and minerals from roots to different plants' parts is called the ascent of sap. A number of factors play a role in the ascent of sap. Root pressure is responsible for the movement of water up to the base of the stem from root hairs. Water rises in the stem up to a certain height by physical forces such as capillary action. Water molecules form a continuous column in the xylem because of forces of adhesion and cohesion. The force of attraction between molecules of water is called cohesion. The force of attraction between water molecules and xylem cells is due to adhesion. Points to remember: xylem and phloem are the vascular tissues that transport water, minerals, and sugars to all parts of plants. The root pressure allows the entry of water into the xylem vessels. Transpiration is the evaporation of water in plants through stomata in the leaves. The phloem transports the sugar substances by a pressure flow mechanism. The xylem moves water and minerals by using forces like root pressure, capillary action, cohesion, and adhesion of molecules.